Hey, Lady Sin, Tyler here. I wanted to give a response video to you. Thank you so much for responding to my comment and making a video about it and sharing your music choices. I was really thankful that you got to do that. I always love watching people's videos about music because music has become, as cliche as it sounds, it's become a part of my life in more ways than some, and it's helped me through a lot of stuff, and it has inspired me to be the person I am today. Um, but yeah, I think it's really cool that you know I think that it's really cool that there's people like you in the subculture that break the stereotype. That don't really just only listen to goth music, but listen to all genres of music, and that's pretty much how I am. There are certain music like country and rap that I do not like, and most pop artists today. But far and few between, I do like some bands, and I like a lot of the bands that you named off. Most of them. Domin is the only one I have not heard of, but I will check that out because I really do love the Misfits, and I would be interested in listening to a band that has that kind of sound. But yeah, some of the bands I started listening to in my early teenage years was like Slipknot, Avenged Sevenfold, Mushroomhead, A7X, Bullet for My Valentine, um, and Green Day. Nirvana was another really big one that I really liked. Yeah, and I grew up with like a lot of 80s music, so I liked Motley Crue and Poison and Kiss, and The Cure and Alice Cooper, and yeah, I was raised on that kind of stuff. I also got into the Ramones and the Sex Pistols and Exploited and the Addicts. Um, I started liking punk music too. Um, and then when I got into the goth subculture, I got interested in a couple bands as well. Because when I first came into the goth scene, a friend of mine, her brother used to be into goth. Unfortunately, used to be, but he still listens to the same music even though he doesn't dress the part. Um, but he gave me like a 3 disc CD, and it had like goth bands on it and stuff. So I heard like The Cure, Alien Sex Fiend, Bauhaus, Community FK, Specimen. Uh, I heard The Mission, um, and I like the Sisters of Mercy as well. Um, Susie and the Banshees, The Wake was on there. Uh, yeah, there was just really really good gothic rock bands. And I also got into like London After Midnight and Suspiria and Disjecta Membra. Um, and I got into Merciful Nuns and Angels of Liberty and She Passed Away, which are newer adaptations of gothic rock or post punk. I think what's really cool about the goth scene that it kind of died out for a while, but in the '90s, it started this big explosion with gothic bands, and then it kind of died out a little bit more, and it went through a recession or whatever you want to call that, and then it came back in the 2000s and all the way up to date. We've had these explosion of these new post punk bands, cold cave, cold wave bands that have come into the scene, and new gothic rock bands like Angels of Liberty, which I learned that band through one of the YouTubers I follow, Nephilim and Corruptus. And I really love them. I love the sound of them. They sound a lot like the Sisters of Mercy, but very up to date, very political, and a very modern sound with a twist of the '80s gothic rock. Um, I also love lots of new wave, like Gary Newman and Depeche Mode and Blondie, and stuff like that. Um, Mark Almond, that's another one. I really love Dead or Alive. Um, Rest in peace, Pete Burns. But yeah, I grew up with lots of music like that. Not specifically goth. I don't want to sound cocky because I didn't grow up with goth music. I grew up with '80s music that led into goth music. Um, and not everybody has that experience where they, automatically like goth music. I think everybody in the goth scene is here in the subculture for their own reasons, and as long as I feel as long as they respect that, if it wasn't for the post punk bands, we wouldn't have goth. Um, there are people on here that do disagree with me, but I respect that, and I've had conversations with them before. But I think that it's really cool that you are breaking stereotypes, and I feel that you do respect where it's come from. But you have a very eclectic kind of music taste, and you don't like let anything tie you down. You don't stereotype yourself, and I think that's really cool. Um, but anyways, thank you for the shout out, and I also want to mention I have like a split, uh, very diverse, eclectic kind of music taste. I also love industrial, synth pop, dark wave, dark electro, EBM, and industrial music, electro, and agrotech music, which is all in the industrial, dark electronic, dance music thing. And like, yeah, that's a staple on goth, but it really is its own thing. That came from like rave, and that also came from the subculture Rivethead, which is basically like a industrial futuristic version of punk, that started out in the 80s with bands that I also really like Throbbing Gristle, Skinny Puppy, Nine Inch Nails, um, and My Life with a Thrill Kill Cult. All of those are very known, and I think I named Ministry, but I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, I love all of those bands as well. I love Covenant, Blue Angle, Leather Strip, Project Pitchfork, um, God Majul. Um, what else do I like? Oh my goodness, Ludovico Technique, Mordacious, Terror Frequence. Um, what else do I like? What else do I like? Disastros, um, and a bunch of other stuff I can't really think of off of my head. But those were the kind of that was the kind of music I was listening to when I entered a goth club for the first time. It was a goth and industrial club, so they played a lot of dark electronic dance music and stuff like that. So I got really inspired to start listening to that music. So I started listening to that kind of music, and I actually like it. I listened to a podcast on the internet called Communion After Dark, which is run by DJs that DJ at a local goth club in Tampa, Florida. I've actually visited the goth club once, and it was really awesome. And they play a lot of dark electronic music, and it's a really, really awesome podcast. So if you guys are interested in hearing some music that is played in goth clubs nowadays, most definitely check that podcast out. Um, they update, I think, every week on Wednesday, and they are doing their two final shows. They're doing one last regular show, and then they're doing their favorites for the year, and they will be back in 2017. But they do frequent their channels all the way up until the new year, and then they have new episodes. But they're always out with new music, new albums. They're always getting people to check out, different music and different albums and different artists, and going out and buying their albums and supporting their scene, and they're really awesome. Um, so I also listen to a lot of that. I love a lot of symphonic metal like Epica and Nightwish. That's the only ones I can really think of at the top of my head. I like industrial metal like Eisbrecher, Rammstein, Goth Minister, Death Stars, stuff like that. I think even Mushroomhead would be considered industrial metal if you really want to put them in there. But yeah, I like music like that. I like, metal in general. Like, I love Rob Zombie, and I like White Zombie too. I like shock rock like Alice Cooper and Marilyn Manson. And no, I don't consider him to be goth, but I do like his music, and he has undeniably he has influenced me in more ways than one. Um, and what else do I like? I used to like techno and dubstep, but I'm not much into it anymore. But yeah, um, yeah, and I like, um, I don't know what you would call it. Yeah, you would call it like I think black metal. Like I like Cradle of Filth, Dimmu Borgir, Gorgoroth. So yeah, I like bands like that too. So my interests are all over the place. I also like death rock music, which is too goth for punk and too punk for goth. But it has some ties with the goth subculture. They kind of branched off into their own thing, and there are all different types of death rock bands. Some of them I listen to is Fangs on Fur, All Gone Dead, Cinema Strange, bands like that. Even some of the 80s bands like Alien Sex Fiend and Christian Death and Community FK would be considered death rock. Also, another traditional band I really like is Clan of Zymox. I like Exmal Deutschland, Skeletal Family, Sex Gang Children. Uh, yeah, so I'm all over the place. I also love a black metal vampiric band called Theater Stays Vampires. Another industrial band I like is Nakmar. And I love Aria, however you say her name. She's a really good industrial artist as well. I love Angel Spit. Um, so I'm all over the place with music, most definitely. Um, I feel like I'm forgetting one more thing. I always like forget it and then I remember it when I'm done making the video. But yeah, that's pretty much the kind of music I like. Um, so yeah, I know that my video isn't really as flowy, but whatever. I try my best. So until next time, guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.